What up, YouTube nerds? So, after endless amounts of sifting and talking to people on forums, online, it comes down to one thing. Most of you guys don't know how to use a compressor pedal for guitar. Now, simply put, if I was, and a lot of people just don't know what they actually do truly. Simply put, right? And I'm gonna put this, I'm gonna explain it a little more, but to start with, I'm gonna give you basically the definition as online sources say, and simply put, it reduces the dynamic range of the guitar. All right. So it'll slightly boost the volume of notes that maybe you pick softly, while bringing down the volume of the notes that you might pick hard, right? Gives you kind of like a smoother overall tone, but to be a little more specific, it's almost like a volume leveler, right? So if you're, let's say, and it was originally designed mainly for tube amps. All right, let's get that out of the way right now. And what I mean is that when you're playing around with the EQ on a tube amp specifically, and you have, even if you have, if the highs dialed back a little bit, or the bass dialed back a little bit for your personal preference, when you go through by ear, right? Sometimes you'll still have highs that stand out a little more. You still have maybe lows that are a little more pronounced than what you want. Compressor addresses this by basically leveling the highs, lows, and mids, and basically syncing them across the line, right? So even if you have your amp highs dialed in at, say, 7 out of 10, right? And your mids are cranked for whatever reason, or maybe just scooped slightly. Maybe if you have, the mids at 3 out of 10, bass, whatever. Maybe you have it cranked, maybe you don't, right? So the compressor is going to automatically level out the volume from that signal, right? So, and typically a compressor pedal, you can use in the front of the guitar. But ideally, if you want the most benefit out of it, you're better off putting it in the effects loop of an amp. And I started to say, I told you that originally it started out for tube amps. That's because tube amps, a lot of tube amps actually, they have spiky highs. Sometimes, especially depending on the speaker that you're using, you might get spiky highs, or the mids might be way more than you want, even when you dial back the mids. The problem with that is when you start dialing back the mids too much on an amp, that's a mid-heavy speaker, you'll start to get like that blanket over the speakers effect kind of sound going on. All right, so it's important that I kind of really explain anything before I start showing you and messing around with the compressor pedal itself. All right, so in this case, we're looking at the Keeley, Robert Keeley compressor pedal, and they call it, it's part of the 4-in-1 series, where you've got sustain, level, blend, and tone. All right, so before I even get into this, I want to let you guys know, first off, a compressor pedal is not meant to be used as a boost. Okay, for you guys that are saying you crank the level and you're using that as a boost, I guarantee if you compare that side by side with an OD pedal where the volume's up and the drive's down, or a dedicated boost pedal, I guarantee you're going to notice a huge difference. And I will actually demonstrate that huge difference in this video. All right, so right now I'm not gonna turn on my EQ pedal at all, even though it's hooked up in the effects loop. It is off. We're only going to be going through the amp. In this case, yeah, it's a hybrid amp. Yeah, it's not a full tube amp. I didn't feel like digging out the Stealth or my MT15 or anything today. I just happen to have this already set up, so that's what we're going to use. But I'm going to crank the tone on it, and then we're going to see if that compressor pedal can still even out that tone variance. Okay, let's start with clean. Still drop C because I don't play anything else. All right. So right now, the tone is about I don't know, 3, 4 out of 10. I think we'll stick on the bridge. They'll stay with the bridge pickup. Okay. So right now, I'm gonna throw everything on 0 except for the level. Level is gonna be. I'm gonna put level halfway up. All right, so it's right at noon. Okay, everything else is down. We're on humbucker mode because this guitar has humbuckers. I don't know if you'd really hear a difference. Let's find out. No, it's just the way it releases. Okay, so right now it's on. So because everything's zeroed out right now, not zeroed, excuse me, off, except for the level, it ends up dropping the volume quite a bit. So which knob is going to increase the volume? Not the tone. How about blend? Okay. Okay. So for you guys that don't know, level control and blend control are going to be primarily your volume. Obviously, the blend control is going to literally what it sounds like. It's going to blend all the frequencies together. We're going to have that halfway up now. On. Okay. Off. On. All right, so what does this tell us? This tells us, based on what we just listened to and what I just played, that the volume overall, like the highs, basically all the different frequencies are being leveled out together. Okay, they're all being matched. Okay, and the reason why I mentioned the tube amps is because back when compressor pedals first came out, they were introduced as a stopgap or a sort of fix for when artists were recording. You would typically not use a compressor pedal during live performances unless you had a real sound system in-house or an arena that was tailored to every single frequency, which is not not unheard of. But when artists were recording, musicians were recording, guitarists were recording tracks, albums, whatever. One of the biggest problems was that when you had to crank a tube amp to get your sound, most of the time you would have all these different frequencies that were spiking in the recorder. And they're, even when you do track by track and you have the ability to adjust the volume periodically when a track is getting mixed down, that doesn't really solve the frequency spiking issue. So that's one of the main reasons why compressor pedals were actually invented. I see a lot of people that have their own opinions on it, what they're for, why they were invented and engineered. No, that was the legitimate, specific reason why compressor pedals became a thing. And of course, over the years, they started adding additional controls like ability to adjust your sustain, because now you're actually losing some sustain when you activate a compressor pedal. So by having a adjustable sustain control on the new new variations of the pedals, you don't lose anything anymore. Okay, so let's get back to it. Now here, the highs are still more pronounced, but I wish, you know what, I wish I had a decibel meter with me right now. I think I left it at the studio. But it's the same volume overall. Even though it might sound like the highs are a little more pronounced, they're not actually louder. Because you can't ignore physics. The physics of a lower string, when it vibrates into a magnet, is going to seem like it's lower no matter what. It's just the physics of it. Anyway, all right. So right now I have the sustain at 0. What happens if I put that sustain all the way up? First off, a lot more attack, a lot more sensitivity. Oh yeah. So it rings out a lot more. There's legitimately more sustain, but the problem with that is this is the reason why it's adjustable, is because you get way more noise if you're not careful. Like on high gain, forget about it. You need to really back it down. Okay? Now how about tone? We'll leave that halfway. Most of the time my controls are set for half anyway, except for the sustain. Sustain is down to about 3 or 4. Usually. Now remember, I turned the tone on this all the way up. So the compressor pedal does account and adjust and help overall with that increase of tone, but it's not gonna completely mute it out. It's not gonna make it so the tone knob on the amp doesn't do anything. It's just less sensitive. All right. Now let's say if we go to high gain channel, right? Not using the boost right now. Compressor pedal is on. One thing that a compressor pedal will not account for is overall resonance. So right now, because I don't have the EQ pedal on with a little zombie, the resonance of the speakers, is never going to be adjusted, right? It's a compressor pedal cannot take away, it can't take away presence or resonance or add either, okay? So that's one thing I did want to point out. That's kind of an important aspect here. All right, now let's say if I turn off the compressor pedal, right, and I turn on my boost, okay? My OD pedal is a boost, volume's up, drives down all the way, tone's just over half, okay? Tone is dead center here on the zombie too, all right? So I'll start with it off. sounds like I have a boost on, which is perfectly fine. I knew it was off. So, what does this mean? This means that we are going to try to match the compressor to the overdrive as a boost, and we're going to find out if these guys online are full of shit or not. Okay, so compressor's off. Let me turn it on. Let me try cranking the level. Tone. Okay, so right now level is cranked. Tone's about half, blend's half, sustain is still back down to 3.5. Okay, I switched it off. Right now it's off. I'm gonna go back and forth with compressor only. It's off. Okay, so can it work as a boost? It's not quite there. It's not quite there. Now, let me bounce back and forth between compressor and overdrive and see what happens. Okay, starting with the compressor. Okay, so that was just right there. That was with the overdrive on, compressor off. All right, so what do you guys think? To me personally, how I'm feeling it and how I'm hearing it, I don't personally believe that you can use a compressor to its full potential and have it as a boost at the same time. It doesn't work. Even right now with the level all the way up, everything else at noon, sustain at 4, it doesn't, it's not there for me. And for some of those guys that are saying use a compressor as a boost because it works better, well, no, it doesn't. It works like a compressor pedal. Yeah, you can adjust the signal as it goes through. And by the way, I mean, this is hooked up to the front of the amp. So is it really acting like a boost? No. Even with the level cranked, it's not boosting all the signals because you've got the compressor side of it that is leveling out all the frequencies and the levels. So it's almost like that's a double-edged sword right there. It's almost like that pedal is working against itself. It's got to be one or the other. Okay, you can't have a compressor pedal as a boost unless you use it only as a boost. And then at that point, why did you go out and spend $150 on a compressor pedal? So guys, at the end of the day, when it comes to compressor pedals, they're great for live use, but they're even better for recording. So you know, we just recorded a few tracks the other day where I wasn't using compressor pedal, and I just had the opportunity to listen to the tracks. Was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday. And the first thing that I noticed was my guitar signal was kind of scratchy sounding, and I found out later on that it was actually certain frequencies that were spiking, and it sounded fine in person, but on recording, that's why a compressor pedal is a good idea. And this is one of the reasons why modeling amps are really good for recording. I've said it before, and I'm going to say it now. Modeling amps already are naturally compressed on their own. They already, or they already have compressors built into them that are automatically on, and you don't adjust them. And that's why it has that sound. That's why it has, I won't go as far as saying mushy, but for anyone that's compared the tube amps compared to the modeling amps, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So, but overall, that's the rundown of compressor pedal. It's not only to level out the frequency spikes, but also level out the volume from your playing, right? Because if I'm picking hard, right, let's turn the boost off, right? I got everything off right now. All right, so if I start, let's say I grab a C, right, and I pick lightly, all right, then I pick hard. Okay, there's definitely a volume difference, right? Now let's turn the compressor pedal on with lots of noise. You can't tell if I was just picking hard or soft. And to be honest, just by using my ear, I couldn't either. So overall, compressor pedals, fantastic for recording. You can use them in live use, depending on, if you've got a sound guy or you don't have a sound guy, you've got an in-house PA, sound system. So there's a lot of variables there that are going to affect the decision of, do I use a compressor pedal today? Do I use it never? That's personal choice. But to be honest, nowadays most compressor pedals are relatively the same. The Keeley compressor is probably in my top 3 for compressor pedals that I've used, but I've also used the cheap ones. Like, you guys know that I've used Joyo pedals. I mean, I've got a friggin' Joyo amp and a Joyo EQ pedal right here. So I'm not afraid to get cheap too if I need to, if the quality's there. Joyo makes a good compressor pedal. I feel like I'm talking out of my ass and saying that like as if I'm a fucking spokesman for them. I'm not, but I just wanted to clarify that. So hopefully that clears a few things up, tells you what they're actually used for, why you use them, when you use them. But if you have questions, or if you feel like if there was something I didn't cover, let me know. And I'll either make another video, or I will just, I'll respond back and tell you, to get bent. Okay,